Welcome to the Savvy Spirit Podcast. I'm Sharon Moore, your host and creator of the Savvy Spirit Entrepreneur Program. This podcast features conscious women entrepreneurs whose businesses are built on their unique gifts and are making the world a better place. You're going to learn about their journeys, their courage, their resilience, and their truth. So enjoy the show, feel the love, and get inspired. All right, welcome back, everybody. So today, we're spending time with Jen Weiss. Jen is a development strategist and mindset coach. That means she has the profoundly important role of helping nonprofit organizations get funds. Because here's the deal. Without a solid funding campaign, even the most amazing of missions just cannot happen. I think Jen's website says it best. She says, I help overstretched and often underappreciated development staff learn the mindset and the hard fundraising skills so that they can enjoy their work and, of course, raise more money. And if you were to take a moment to read her reviews, you'd see that the organizations she works with not only reach their goals, but sometimes they do so earlier than scheduled. I mean, how often do you hear that? Now, through the years, Jen has consulted with many nonprofits all around the country, but one stands out. And this is one that had a funding campaign of, and get ready for this, $125 million. $125 million. Now, there is a lot of good that can come from that kind of money. So Jen Weiss, the woman that turns organizations' missions to realities, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sharon. What a nice introduction.
Aww.
Wow, that was very special.
Well, it's the truth, people. It is the truth. So, Jen, I often at this point when I have guests come onto the show, I ask, what's been your business journey? How did you find yourself here? And for you, I'm curious about the same thing because when I think about your skills and what you've chosen to do, I know you could have gone and worked with startups or companies and getting funding, but instead you've chosen to help nonprofits. Can you tell us about your journey?
Sure. Yeah, I think I've always been sort of a mission-oriented person, and there was really no question that I would be, working in a nonprofit setting since I started working, which was right around my early 20s out of college. And so I've never thought about pursuing any other path just because I really wanted to help make things better. And I started by entering the nonprofit sector in New York. I founded an after-school program, which was a grassroots nonprofit organization focused on bringing the voices of New York City youth to stage. And so we did spoken word and hip hop and writing, and I really sort of rode the wave of the hip hop movement. This was in '99, and the spoken word community out in New York City, which was burgeoning and super exciting. And I'm a California girl by birth, but it was just like such a thrill to, in my mid-20s, be out in New York and really sort of tap into the energy there. And, what I realized early on is that there's just so much talent, and there's so much good that can come when people are focused on things that they love, the things they're passionate about. And I really loved sort of bringing that together over the last 2 decades. I've gone from being a founder of an organization, so being more on the program side, to then transitioning into the fundraising realm, which to me is one of the most strategic positions within a nonprofit organization, because if you don't have your fundraising solid, nothing else is able to be successful. So it's not just about raising money, but it's about sort of being involved in setting strategy and planning and making sure the resources are in place and the team is in place to make what the organization wants to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, it was funny because when I looked at your website, it really rang true that, listen, you can have an incredible executive director, you can have an incredible mission, you can have an incredible staff, but if you don't have funding, you can't actually go and make this impact in the world. It's like the missing link. It's not even, it's the vehicle to go and have this impact.
Right, right. I mean, I think that's one thing when you sign on to being a nonprofit, if that's sort of the direction your career is taking, you're sort of at the mercy of the fundraising, and it can create. I know when I founded Urban Word New York, is the organization I founded in New York. I built up a lot of resentment around the fundraising because I hated the fact that I sort of had to, what I thought at the time, grovel for money.
I know.
To do this great work. And as I matured over the years, from being 25 to now 45, I can see that if you think about it as groveling, it is going to be really hard to raise money. But there are a lot of people who have a lot of wealth who want to support the very things that people are excited about doing, whether it's in education or in health or in environment. And it's sort of, how do you bring those two worlds together so that it's a partnership and not adversarial and not sort of built on, things like guilt and resentment, but more productive and positive, and that's bring that energy together, and so that things can start to flow in a really special way. And that's sort of what I've seen now 2.5 decades later in my career. And that's what I like to try to help people see now that I have my business.
Now that you have what?
My own business, just coaching and supporting fundraising folks.
Right. Well, two things came to mind for me with that. One, I just love midlife. I just do. We just have those 2 decades and so much wisdom was gained. And then the other thing is, I imagine this thing that you said of, if I'm thinking about it as groveling, then that's what it's going to be. And, you call yourself a mindset coach. And I imagine that's the shift that you work with your clients around.
Well, I try to do it subtly, because a lot of people don't know what their mindset is until, they're sort of up against the fact that they're not being successful. And so it's trying to kind of isolate and assess where the stuck points are. And often it is around their mindset, whether it's that they are irritated that they're bored, they can't work well with some of the leadership on the staff, they don't understand their donors, and maybe don't want to understand their donors, or they have their own relationship to money that is not necessarily positive, productive, and we all have our money stories. And so it's just trying to kind of assess for it, but not overstate it, because, I don't want to make people too hyper conscious of it, but at the same time, realizing that it is a piece of the fundraising puzzle. Yeah. And if you ignore it, you can do all the tactical things right, but you can't really get to the sort of what I like to think of as the magical spot of fundraising, where it does actually become very fun, and you can start to feel a momentum that builds. And when you get to that point, it's pretty exciting. And you can feel really proud of the fact that you're able to raise this money to get a lot of important work done. And so that's kind of like where I'm always headed. Whether we get to that or not is dependent both on my support of my client and then, their work themselves.
And I love that you have experience being your own ED and having founded a nonprofit on your own 20 plus whatever years ago. I'm curious, is that organization still around, Urban Ward New York?
Yes, they are.
Urban Ward is?
Yeah. I just celebrated their 25th anniversary, and I'm still very close with the executive director who assumed the leadership role.
When you left?
After I transitioned, and he's done an amazing job, and it's, scaled to greater heights than I would have been able to bring it. And I always feel that's another sort of one of my principal thoughts is I think, leadership should transition out at some point, because I've saw firsthand what he was able to do once I left. And so that's been a really fun relationship. And I'm still in touch with a lot of the students who ran through that program when I was there. And some have moved to Oakland, which is where I'm now at. And I, make a point of trying to stay in their lives.
Wow. So, Jen, that is amazing.
Thanks.
And it just gives you just kind of you're not just a consultant that is working off of theory and this kind of, theoretical place. You're actually helping organizations because you yourself have had that experience.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I mean, I'm at a point now in my life, speaking of midlife, where it's just became obvious at the end of my time at my last organization, Kit Berry Schools, just that what I most enjoyed was helping other people based on what I had learned, and just taking the knowledge I had gained and giving it back out. And that's kind of where I'm at in my own growth personally. Yeah. That what I want is to support others and to just, give them whatever knowledge I've gained and make it so that they can utilize that and benefit from it, because that's really what else is there if you don't share what you know?
Right. And again, amazingly, what I pointed out in the beginning, you've got all these skills and you are always helping mission-based nonprofit organizations that are making the world a better place. You could have used those skills in other ways, but you've chosen to do it this way. And I'm very moved by that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Yep. I mean, that's kind of the trajectory it's taken. It doesn't mean I wouldn't venture to go into for-profit, but I think for now I'm pretty content. And I feel like, the best we can do in the nonprofit sector is be highly effective and not waste resources. And I've had the benefit of working for some great nonprofit organizations. And so now I can leverage that and help, sometimes, when I founded Urban Word, I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew my heart was in the right place. So I didn't always have the right strategies, but I was doing something right. And so as I step back and see sort of where these other nonprofits are in their trajectory, some of them are, 5 years old, some are 25 years old. But to be able to leverage the range of experience I've seen, what a functional nonprofit organization looks like, feels like, sounds like, tastes like, and help leaders get their organization in that position, because the resources are tight. There's a lot of important things that need to be accomplished if you're working in poverty reduction or the criminal justice system. I mean, at the end of the day, I want to see that things actually change and that the organizations have impact. And so we have to figure out what the right strategies are to make impact. And that's what I'm kind of excited to do.
Amen. And so now you are a business owner and your business is helping nonprofits get funds. Now, I do want to actually switch gears in a moment. You'll be able to tell us a little bit more about how people hear about you and what some of your services are. But I want to actually dive into the three questions I ask every one of my guests. And those are the three things that I think are really key to being a fulfilled conscious woman entrepreneur. So the first one is around your unique gifts. So clearly you found your unique gifts and you are using them and you built your business around them. What I find interesting is, how did you get the courage to bring this out to the world?
Well, it was sort of a lot of circumstance led to it. I had finished the campaign, the $125 million campaign. It was a 5-year fundraising campaign, and it really was a journey. And I felt like this is the right time to transition into something different. It felt like, the right mark and moment. And so I took that sort of wisdom and sort of stepped back and tried to figure out what is the right next step for me. And again, like I had said, what do I most enjoy? Well, I most enjoy helping people based on what I've learned. And so it just became an obvious, let's try, consulting and doing your own consulting and coaching around fundraising, since that's what you've been doing for the last decade. And as it would happen, everything sort of played in my favor. Through word of mouth, really, in the last 2 years, I've had a number of wonderful clients who've allowed me to come in and support them and learn a lot, because when you're starting your own business, you sort of don't know what you're doing. And I've had enough now experience with different organizations and different clients, and just gotten to love and know each one of them differently. And that's given me a lot of new experience and stuff I can tap into that I wouldn't have had 2 years ago. So the courage was really circumstantial, but it was also knowing, I think, because I had started that nonprofit in my mid-20s, I have an entrepreneurial spirit. I'm a pioneer in terms of one of my strengths. I really like seeing things get started, and then the universe conspired to support me by providing work, and word of mouth was really helpful. And so, it all kind of came together easily. And 2.5 years in, I'm at a really interesting juncture now where I get to kind of step back and revamp a little bit. And I think that's the other fun part about having your own business is you have a lot of creative license, and it's sort of, you're one with your business. You don't have a lot of static. And whereas when you're in an organization, there's a lot of noise, and it's hard sometimes to sort of know where you are within that noise. And I feel like I have a lot clearer line to what my own thinking is and feeling is, and where I want to head next. And that feels very good at this time of my life.
It's interesting because one thing that I picked up on was it doesn't seem like you have fear around change. Because when you talk about, you started Urban Word New York, you started it, that was your baby. And yet you came to a point where you knew and you recognized and you acted upon, okay, it's time for me to transition out. And then same with this, you were working for Kip and you did the 125 million, and it was this whole journey. And then you got to a place and you're like, I think it's time for me to transition. That alone takes courage.
I would say that's true. I mean, I don't think I'm afraid of change. I've had a few things happen that have made me see that change is important. And I tend to run on a 4 to 5 year cycle. I mean, I think everyone has their own sort of cycle, but that tends to be mine, where I like to kind of try something different. And if you do, if you can tap into that feeling of well-being, and that there is something greater than you that's sort of supporting you, change becomes more fun than scary. But that takes time to get comfortable with. I don't know that I had that when I was 20.
Oh, that sometimes takes lifetimes to get comfortable with. Not everybody has this amazing approach towards change, by the way. I mean, there's a lot of resistance to change, and change is scary and it's unknown, which is why it stood out to me that you didn't, that you said, I believe that leadership, at one point, leadership needs to change. You and I both know that not all leaders believe that. So, there's just something, to me, what I got was this is a woman who's kind of fearless when it comes to change. And you said it beautifully. The universe conspired to support me. In a way, you've surrendered, and hey, if I'm doing aligned work, the universe is going to support me. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I'd love to hear that. You said it so beautifully that the universe conspired to support you. Can you give us some examples of a time where you did exactly that? You went into the unknown. You went into something that seemed scary, and you knew in your being that the universe would support you.
Well, I definitely think the transition into my own consulting business, it was a leap of faith. And I did have, the backing and the support of the organization I was transitioning out of, which was a wonderful runway. But as I quickly could see, I was lining up clients without much effort. I do believe that when you're sort of in alignment, things come to you. So I feel like I was getting messages like, okay, this is right, and I just felt good. I wanted to step back anyway, because managing a campaign like that is very stressful. And I realized that that stress was not good for me. I don't know that I handle stress very well. And I was able to totally pull out of that, focus on being a mom and working to support other people who were in fundraising roles and take care of myself, whether that was meditating every day or going to yoga or hiking. I just was able to kind of level set my energy, and that felt really good. And I could just feel in my body that this was right. And I think I'm at a moment right now, 2.5 years in, where it's a change, it's a transition, it's like a pivot moment, but it's not as scary, because I've kind of built up this system, this nervous system that can handle a little bit of, change without a lot of trauma in it. And that's felt really good. And I really think that's important, is just how do you create the energetics of stability so that you're not freaked out when things shift, because things are always going to shift. And so that was really good. I think I just felt it in my body that this was right.
And I got to reflect that back to you. I mean, you said it so many times, and that is so what we all need to hear, is that it felt good. Our bodies actually tell us, we know when we've hit that threshold of, yeah, you know what? I don't like this level of stress, or I don't like being in this relationship, or I don't like being in this job. Our bodies are telling us. And if we pay attention, we can feel into, okay, this feels right.
Yes. Yeah. I believe everything should feel good. And that's why, oftentimes with my clients who are in these very stressful positions within their organization, they're being told by their executive director, their board members, their staff underneath them, they're in a very tense place. And, sometimes I just try to get them to focus on what feels good. And it'll be like, well, I really like when I do this thing. And then, you start there, because if you don't feel good in your role, it's going to be very hard to be successful. And I think a lot of people in fundraising don't feel good.
Yeah.
And I know I didn't for a long time. I was doing all the things that I should be doing, but it didn't feel very good. Yeah. And that is the other thing I'd say about the courage question, is just, it was courageous in some ways for me to just admit that. And I think that's what took a long time for me to say, this should feel better. And I know I can get it to feel better, but I'm going to have to do some work on myself to feel better. And that's what the starting my own business helped me do.
And I love that concept. The more we sit there and hide these things that we feel shame about, the more power we give them. Once we shine the light on them, boom, suddenly all kinds of openings happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. And having the courage to admit when you need to stop something. It's not easy. We live in the Bay Area here. It's kind of a grinding culture, success, achievement oriented, and you end up expending a lot of energy, sometimes in the wrong directions, because you think that's how it has to be. And I honestly don't think it needs to be like that.
You and me both. Okay. So then the third thing that I always like to ask is, here we are, you've built a business around your unique skills. It's all about your gift, and the universe is completely supporting you. And suddenly, holy shit, you're a business owner. How have you navigated things like accounting or PR or database or marketing and things like that?
Okay. Yeah. Well, I would say that in some areas I've been very good about anticipating what my needs are going to be, and in others I've had to learn the hard way. I I think I kind of had the right impulses early on. Like I got a website up quickly, hiring somebody to help me do that. I knew that I needed help with my bookkeeping early on, and I found some help with that. I realized I needed some coaching. I mean, I think one thing about when you start your own business, you need to have some level of either a life coach or a personal business coach. And I took a class. I took a boot camp, freelancer boot camp out of Optima, which is based at the Impact Hub here in Oakland. And all those things helped guide me. But I guess I realized what I didn't know. And so I was able to kind of access resources that could help me. Mm-hmm. And then with the bookkeeping, that's something now I'm starting to take on, but that's after a year and a half of working with a really skilled bookkeeper who could teach me why this is important. And then the other support I've had is I've found a wonderful virtual assistant who can take some of the technical pieces off of my list of things to do, because that's not necessarily where I want to put all of my time and energy. And then the area where I would say I did not put enough attention towards, and I'm starting to now, is my marketing, is networking, is promoting, is having a strategy around how I want to talk about my work, promote it, and just get the word out. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of the pivot moment I'm at right now. And I think the reason I delayed on those two things, or on the marketing piece, is that I wasn't totally sure what I was marketing. And so it's taken me 2.5 years to really feel emboldened and like, okay, I know what I'm offering, and to have a sense of confidence and that I can provide value. And that's why it lagged in terms of some of the other areas.
That's so interesting. I do find that, well, what I heard is you knew how to ask for help. And the other thing I heard around the marketing is just something that I personally find so interesting, which is it's so scary to go out there. Marketing, we say that word like it's no big deal, but when you are marketing yourself and your business, like you said, it is intertwined with who you are. And that is so vulnerable sometimes. And similar to how you said, we discover what mindsets are gently, what mindsets these development, directors or fundraising folks have. We as business owners kind of discover our own limiting mindsets when it comes to marketing. It's incredible. It's like condensed therapy is try to market your own business.
That's right. It is. And I had a business coach early on who was trying to get me to do more marketing. And it was like, I just had a lot of blockage and resistance around it. And I see now I just wasn't ready. Mm-hmm. But whether I was ready or not is not really the point, because you kind of have to do it if you want to have a successful business. So you either need to hire out and find somebody who can get you ready, yeah, or just have a little courage and bring it, because I think you can't let stuff just lag because you have resistance around it, especially when you're running your own business. I mean, you kind of have to activate on all fronts, mm-hmm. But get all of the resources that you need so that you can activate pretty well on all fronts. Mm-hmm. Not that you're alone and pulling your hair out, so that you've got the right supports in place, but you can't let one side of the business fall off while you're, hyper executing on the other side. I think, mm-hmm. you have to kind of have a very 360 holistic view of, okay, here are the 4 critical areas of your business, and do them enough so that you're moving the whole business forward and not just pieces of it.
Mm-hmm. Amen. Hey, how do people find you? Let's say people are listening, they're running nonprofits, they need help with funding. How do they find you?
I have a website. It's jenweiss.org, JenWeiss.org. And that's probably the easiest way. My contact information is on there. You can email or call me directly. I'm pretty easy to reach and available by email as well. I will be offering some trainings coming up in the next I don't know, half of a year. So please look out for that. And I will put that on the website. But also I do individual coaching and consulting, depending on what the client needs.
Perfect. Great. And I will put that in the episode notes too. So if you're listening right now on your device, you can just scroll up and right below, you'll see all the notes with a live link to Jen's website. So you can go there. Unfortunately, Jen, we are just about at time. I do want to close by offering you just to share some words of wisdom or words of encouragement to any of our listeners who might be starting a new business or might be 15 years in and realigning. Just what sort of words of wisdom would you like to offer?
Gosh, that's such a good question and a hard one. I would say to prioritize your self-care, insofar as it gives you the kind of connection to your inner wisdom as well as to the universe that will ultimately help you. Mm-hmm. And to create enough space for that, and then to trust yourself and to be willing to take risks, because this is your one life, and there's no time like the present to launch out and do something that you feel compelled to do. And there are people out there who want to be helpful and can be helpful, so you can be sure that you can find the resources that you need.
So many people, that's what I've learned, and what I keep hearing when I think about all the words of wisdom that people say. There's some themes, and among them are, hey, by the way, people are eager and waiting to help you. And yes, people are eager and waiting for you to step into your work. So it's a double where everybody's ready. Let's do, like you said, you've got this one life. Let's do it.
Yeah, it's exciting.
It is.
And it's fun. It's really fun. It's very creative to do your own business, because you kind of have, control in a way that is super creative and energetic and energizing. And if you think that it's just scary or daunting, it's not. It's extremely fun. And you get to sort of play in the serendipity of the universe. I mean, I've found that, it's only since I've started my own business that I get to kind of see how coincidences unfold, the right clients show up, the right people show up. You don't get to see that, oftentimes when you're in an organization or in a company, because there's just a lot of noise. Mm-hmm. Whereas when you have your own thing going, it's like, oh, wow, this wouldn't have happened if this didn't happen, and that wouldn't have happened. And that's really fun. Mm-hmm. I think that's when life gets pretty interesting and joyful, and you sort of ride the momentum and the flow. And that's what I believe fundraising can be as well, is how do you kind of tap into that energetic flow and find the resources that are out there, and so that it doesn't feel as daunting and foreboding and scary.
She just said fundraising could be fun and in the flow. I mean, I know if I was in a seat of development director, I'd want somebody helping me who sees fundraising as fun and in the flow. Amen, sister. All right. Well, Jen, thank you so much for being here. Your story is amazing. And I'm so happy that you are helping nonprofits so that they can actually do their work in the world. What an amazing way to use your skills.
Well, thank you, Sharon. I love your podcast, and I'm super excited to see where your work goes as well.
All right. And as always, I like to end with a little reflection for all the people who have listened to the episode. And, for me, it is such a gift to be able to bring and highlight women like Jen, who are high caliber, high integrity, and using their skills and their entrepreneurial spirit to make the world a better place. And I know that this travels from your ears to your hearts to action, and ultimately to making our world a better place. And I cannot dream of a better way to use my unique set of skills. So with that, I will sign off, and we will see you next week. Thanks everyone for listening. I hope you feel inspired and connected and alive. And hey, if you enjoyed the show today, leave us a review. And if you want more, you can also find us online at thesavvyspirit.com or on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Okay, my friends, it is time to say goodbye. I wish you a good night, a good morning, a good day, wherever you are on this earth. I wish you well, and I'll see you next week.